Lytudiep. Hello dear friends. Wish everyone good luck. Is everyone's life okay? And Jame and Deep are currently having to make a very difficult decision. Deep and Jame's dad is gone. He is determined to do something better. And today he has to make a choice. Now let's find out together. The morning sun spread over a quiet countryside field where golden bags of corn lay stacked in rows. James, a foreign CEO who had long made this humble village his second home, stood beside Lytudiep, a gentle Vietnamese woman with calm eyes and steady hands. They were negotiating the price of corn. Let's settle at 65,000. Deep said softly but firmly. Think of it as a friendly start for both of us. James smiled. He knew that in business, trust was worth far more than a few thousand dong. On the surface, the day was ordinary, simple trade. Laughter over a box of Dormont candies, but beneath that simplicity stirred a deeper storm inside James. It was not just about corn or money. He was quietly standing before one of the hardest choices of his life: to follow his heart or listen to his mind. Later that day, as Deep packed up to leave, a small voice broke through the quiet yard. I'm going home, to my real parents. It was NHI, the little girl James had raised for years. She stood at the gate, eyes trembling with tears. Aren't I your father? James asked, his voice shaking. You're not my real dad, she cried. The words cut deep, sharper than any knife. Years of care, sleepless nights, laughter, and sacrifice. Suddenly they seemed to vanish like dust. Deep stepped closer, her voice gentle but firm. She's grown. James, maybe you should let her decide. If she realizes how much you loved her, she'll come back. James said nothing. Inside, he was fighting between the ache of his heart and the cold whisper of reason telling him to let go. The next morning, life moved on. James and Deep continued working together, measuring sacks, talking about transport, planning new crops. They rented a small plot of land to grow vegetables. As they dug, planted, and built a fence, every swing of the hoe seemed to heal something inside James. This will be our garden, Deep said, wiping sweat from her forehead. If we build it together, it'll be beautiful. James looked at her and smiled, realizing that perhaps beauty grows from shared effort and quiet endurance. Then one late afternoon, a familiar voice rang through the yard. Hello, Uncle James. NHI had returned. Her little school bag bounced on her back, her smile bright as sunlight after rain. She ran to help sweep the floor, to fetch water, to chatter endlessly about her day. James watched her, unable to hide his emotion. You see that garden over there? He said softly. I planted it for you. Soon we'll have fresh vegetables. And maybe we'll raise some chickens too. I'd love that, NHI replied with pure joy. In that moment, something inside James settled. He realized that love didn't need blood to be real. The heart knows what the mind can't measure. And so he made his choice, not as a businessman, not as a strategist, but as a man who had learned the cost and beauty of caring. If he could choose again, he would still have raised her, still have loved her, even knowing she might one day walk away. Because in the end, the worth of life isn't in what we own or achieve, but in what we love enough to lose. James was still a CEO, still precise and thoughtful, but that day he understood something deeper. In business he could follow reason, but in life, he would always follow his heart.
hả? Đây còn lại chưa có lắng. Hẹn tay. Nó muốn đánh con vào vài lần. Phân đốm, tâm phân đốm rồi. Nắng còn cuốn có cái áo này trên nó ăn. Cuốn đi. Lái vào tí thì thầm con lái nó nó cái tô nó còn nó không. Khai thácมันเท่าที่เสียวโตมามันอ่ะโอ้ยดูดิดิกุยเลี้ยไอ้ไหนดิจอเอาอันนี้มันเย้มันเลยมันบ้องมันเลยnào đấy cắt cái lăng đây đầy vào cái mấy thế cho này sánh đầy vào tí thế này còn từ lên sau phải làm anh một tí làm nhiều một tí còn nếu mà anh lên trước rồi bạn anh làm
thì nó lại hết nhanh quá ấy. Có việc là các ông lại không gì một tên chứ.
cái này nó không trả tiền thì đâu được đâu
Kiểu gì chả chạy trước các bác.
chắc tầm 4 giờ hơn đi vá chạy rồi vá
Tầm đấy là chạy
xong rồi tối là xấu hổ không làm nên ăn cơm này hết nhiều
không dám lên đâu. Biết thì được ấy.
Lúc con đang bữa đã mỏi rồi
Giảm rồi.
Xúc 2 tấn than
nữa thêm một sức nữa tấn than mà bây giờ làm 4 lít kìa
còn đêm rồi còn 4 tấn
một tấn đấy chắc của người ta thôi của nhà mình chắc không cướp được như thế đâu
đang bảo có đêm mà
nhà mình chắc không cướp được lúc nào đấy bá lần
Lấy
này
được á. Đâu, mà có cày cái đó.
lấy cái sàn này nào
Cày cái chè à. Này.
anh em chỉ việc làm cái sàn
Bao giờ được cái sàn. Thật ba.
ไล่ขึ้น
ไล่ไล่ตีเรา
คือมันเกิดมาเบี้ยมันมาใส่ปูเลยแต่มันเก็บเศษได้เนี่ยว่ะ
แล้วหรอ
เอาเห็ดดูมันเป็นมันเห็ดมันเก็บเศษ
โอ้
เบี้ยปูหน้าปูเดี๋ยวมาว่ามีตัวจังเนี่ยนี่ปูก็เข้าไปเจียวหันมีเลยปูเป็นตัวเบี้ยเลยใช่ป่ะปูก็เจียวหันหน้าปูจังนี่มีได้ละมึงเบี้ยเลยก็ไม่ใช่ขนาดปูเลยมึงกางเกาอะกินนะ
ที่ทำกับเขาออกไปนั่นแหละ
ที่เอาหน้าปูกางเกาเลย
ไป
ไล่เอาได้ปักไปที่มาราชน้ำนี่
เดี๋ยวนะ
น้ำแหลกอ่ะ
เจ๋ยแน่ออกนอกไปแล้ว
เ con cái chỗ đi ra con kia kia đi ra
ขึ้นหมดเลย
một chiếc bố đó lố lắm
mà nó phải bán lại là chơi nó biết là xì chứ nó
ra này để cá sôi cá ăn nhiều
mình tìm vào đấy như này cả bát chui
lần phay mình nhìn cái hả ai không mở dám mình
lật phay mình lật phay mình mưa mình có phay tổ phay còn rét cả tinh rét họ mình có phay cái ứng văn lại mình có phay mình mà hơn có phay phay này nữa
Hai ba số rồi.
khô lắm
ít cát lắm
bắt thảy để nhặt gần